back, after no matter how long, we know that our timeline, we've done our due diligence. I love to, pick the brains of the people who've been doing this thing forever and ever, and are still so much invested into making sure that the growth of the culture, but also the knowledge base and the people. And so somebody who's been doing this religiously is Emile YX. Emile, well, it's good afternoon there. It's good evening here. For what to say, but good day, my brother, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. You can hear me loud and clear, I hope.
Everything loud and clear, man. It's like
Nice.
you're right. It's like you're right next door.
I wish.
So you've recently just moved from the West Coast to the East Coast. You are now in Georgia, close to Atlanta.
Yep.
How's the adjustment going there? I mean, you were just in the Western Cape not too long ago, so I mean you're all over the place, coast to other coast.
Oh man, yeah. This is the reality of like falling in love with people from other parts of the world. Everybody makes it sound like it's the easiest thing on the planet. Mm-mm. It's a hell of a taxi ride, bruh.
Oh man, Emile, let's start from the beginning. I love a good story, and I love it from the horse's mouth. What got you involved into this culture of expression, and also the culture that what we now know as hip hop? I mean, it has so many elements. What got you interested into it being something that is going to be a parallel walk with you in your life?
I mean, the main thing back then, like this is the early 80s, was what you saw coming from the US was considered like Black America is the coolest of the cool as far as everyone on the
Sure.
planet. And as what was it? What was that comedian Paul Mooney says? Everybody wants to be here, but nobody wants to be here.
True.
So,
True.
which is
True.
kind of sad. I'm like, if you think about Black Lives Matter, but like our early exposure, mine specifically, was around dance. So I copied Michael Jackson, whatever came from the US, and like little did I know that he was obviously copying the streets of the US. So all of his popping, all of his moonwalks actually belong to Black America.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been doing it for. I mean, the moonwalk itself or the backslide actually comes from like the era of tap dancing. The Nicholas brothers. Those guys were doing it in the 40s or something already.
Sure.
So he basically commercialized the street dance that has been part of Black America since the beginning. And so I fell in love with that style of dance, and little did I know that it was connected to. So our first crew was actually called Pop Glide Crew because we popped.
Yeah.
We did gliding, and we didn't really initially see a lot of going down to the floor, because that only came afterwards. So around 82, we started doing that type of stand-up. Part of the culture is dancing at clubs. And then when we first saw like the early videos, and South Africa, we were lucky also because they tested movies in South Africa. I think people know this about the country. Like, so they play a music video from one of the movies, like long before the movie arrived, And so we were learning from those movies. But you must remember there was no slow motion on the video scenes.
So you had to watch it and then perfect it and remember it. Otherwise, that's it.
Exactly. And so my intro is essentially to the dance, but the dance is connected to the music. So subconsciously, obviously, all the early hip hop is what we would all the electro music of Bambaataa and like Soul Sonic and all of those electro beats. We're dancing on. And only afterwards we started. When we saw the movies, we started seeing, oh, that's graffiti in the background. Those guys are actually rapping.
Sure. That's a DJ actually turntablism.
Exactly. Yeah. So we and you must remember it was during the cultural boycott. So we had no access to this information whatsoever. Whatever we saw on TV, that was it. And it's actually the reason why a lot of us would like write to people in the US, and
Mm.
like have pen pals.
I was gonna say, like, the pen pal thing was quite big for us, you know.
Yeah,
I had a few pen pals, and I got a lot of information that, you think it's a lie, if because you don't see it on the news, and they're
yeah.
telling you about things that are happening. You're like, what? For
Exactly.
real? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it's also like it felt like Christmas going to the post box. You know what I mean? Like even
Yeah.
because you had to wait like 3 weeks for the letter to get back. There wasn't one button to press to get access. You had to like write that letter and wait for replies. And it's ironic because when I first got to the Bay Area, a friend of mine that I had been a pen pal, Paul Ski, a b-boy from Rock Force crew.
Yeah.
He lived like down the road. I was like, yo, this brass like
You're
right
like,
here,
dude, you
you
you're
know?
right here.
Yeah, and like we've been like pen pals and like connecting with each other at Battle of the Year in Germany and over time, so it's been interesting. The two of us just finished a book called Hip Hop Cultural Education, which
Mm,
is like people who live the culture actually speaking about how it impacted us as far as because he
sure,
became a teacher as well, and I'm a qualified school teacher.
sure.
So it was interesting that like we ended up in the same space and then like decided to pen this book together, But yeah, and now when I'm in Atlanta, a friend of mine who released Black Noise cassette in the 90s from Birthright Records. She lives about like 30 minutes from from where I am now.
That's
So it's hectic,
crazy.
right?
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
So
Yeah,
like,
man.
to just like the question you asked is like it's essentially a b-boying, but once you get involved in any element, you start to see the other, and you can't help but hear the music, and you can't help but see the background and the cultural connection to Africa,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So yeah, that's my intro.
And when did competition start becoming a thing? Like,
Oh,
because you get good enough, and you are gonna bump into another crew that thinks
mhm.
they're better. This is this is the nature of how this thing works, and it
Exactly.
can only be proven one way.
Exactly. I mean, and the funny part of the early competitions, you like had people judging that had no idea, like usually like some ghetto celebrity sitting on the panel. You're like, why is this bra judging this competition? And they're like, oh, your dress was good, you had a nice
uh,
outfit. They're like, what?
what? Did you see the moves?
Yeah, yeah, it was interesting back in the day. And like, I mean, the first competition that I met a lot of other guys was at this. We actually found footage of this. Like I think it was 1984, 85 at in
Wow.
Mitchell's Plain in town center. Mitchell's Plain, Route 66 was the club, and that's where I first met Reddy D.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his crew was called City Kids. Him and
Yeah.
Jorge and Rezano were all in the same b-boy crew. And I told D I found the footage, and he was like, "My bro, don't show anybody that footage." But we were whack. How you think back and you're like, that was dope,
Uh,
and then you see the footage, you're like,
and then
oh
you see,
man,
man, it's like listening to your early music,
yeah,
and you realize how trash you really were
for
back
real.
then.
That's the truth, right? Yeah, but I think with like more people documenting what has been, it's like I think it's important that people see that to just fit it into the timeline to make
Sure.
it easier. For me now with the hip hop museum that Osmic is getting going in, well, hopefully soon.
Yes.
There's all this footage that I think is so necessary for people to put a decent timeline together that makes it easy for us to see what is factual and what is like, because sometimes people's memories, especially as we get older, you're like, nah man, that brat couldn't have he was like
It's like, no,
3. How
man.
could he be involved in the struggle? He was 3 years old,
Ah.
man. It can't be.
There wasn't a juvenile section of Robben Island. Oh,
For real. For real, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, nah,
Oh yeah, man. And I mean, competition is healthy. It's part of the culture. But
mhm.
what are some of the lessons that you learned, especially the tougher lessons you learned
Oh,
from putting yourself out there and maybe not getting the
yeah,
results that
yeah,
because I know
yeah,
you always think today's the day, and until it's
mm-mm.
not.
Yeah, exactly. I think the biggest lesson is that it's a battle against yourself, you know,
Sure.
and I think the sooner you get to realize that, and that the judges, like I said back in the day, you're like, what did this brand know about people? But he's judging, so it was easier. Whereas today you have all these like well-known judges that have like a huge track record, and the problem is still that like it's individual choice. People have different tastes, and so a lot of young people they take the decision too serious. I mean, I
Yeah.
understand the amount of effort and time they put into it. The same like when someone wins like the best lyricist at like the SA, hip
and
hop
and and so-
awards.
and somebody's always got something to say,
Yeah, of course,
Mm,
and I think it's like the way because we have so few platforms, that we are acknowledged. We wanted, everyone wants it to be them at that specific moment,
sure,
and it's
sure.
not very realistic. So I think the biggest lesson is that like it's a battle. Like you say, like if you look back at your own stuff, you're like, yo, bruh, you need to you need to
God
be honest
damn.
about this, man. Things change, and that's the lesson also, that you're never too old to learn.
Sure, sure.
So like no matter what someone suggests, or like what their background might be, like I mean I've toured with people that like they put together a whole concert, and then like this is back in the day, and then like two people come to the civic center. And I'm like, yo, are we gonna do the show? And this bra is like, yo, people paid. I'm like,
People
yo,
paid. We got a whole
do you,
production
you
plan
know
here.
what I mean? I'm like, all right. And that was some of the best shows I did, because like these two people in front of you, like there's no hiding. There's like you got to focus and make their night the best they've ever had.
Yeah,
And those people like years later will like be, yo, thank you for like giving us the best on that night. And I think that's what a lot of young artists don't realize. It's like you winning over people every time you do a performance. Your
sure,
intention is to entertain. So those are some of like, with time, as you get older, you're like, it changes from, yo, I want to be the best, to be like, yo, I want to be the best that I can be. What I mean? That's all I can be.
Facts.
Uh,
Now, you are an author, you're a writer and also a thought leader, if I can say that. So, how has all of this cultural experience, reflected in the literature that you put together, and even the literature that you read and engage yourself with? How has that made you a better literary person as well?
yeah,
Considering that this culture was never immediately associated with anything
yeah.
academic, only to find out that it's the real school.
Mhm. Exactly. I learn more from. I mean, I studied to be a school teacher, and like all of my education, like is I'm going to insult too much, but it's it's extremely limited to the content of what hip hop has taught me. Like I,
Sure.
I mean, like you hear a lot of people say hip hop saved their lives, and I don't think people understand that the content within hip hop is about us. It's
Yeah.
about Africa and Africa's contribution to
Sure.
civilization. And when I say Africa, it also means like all people on the planet that came from Africa, so humanity.
Sure.
And so, like for me, you must remember I grew up in apartheid, and so like even writing a letter, you had to like camouflage what you, because you were like you. Our parents were always fearful. They were like our parents were like, "Hey, they're gonna know what you said." I'm like, "How do they know what I said?" But you know what I mean, that era, and
Yeah.
so like people would send me photocopies of books, of like books like the ISIS papers of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, or um, what's his name, Dr. Browder, the Browder
Yes.
files. And so all of this like really deep dive psychological research into yourself and into Africa, like really helped me look at myself differently. and it demanded that I challenge. Like, I actually left my teaching job because I felt like I was an accomplice to white supremacy. you know
Ooh.
so it was not
Ooh.
just that I always wanted to be a teacher, because growing up, I taught kids roller skating, skateboarding, breaking. Like, I'm very, like, I actually studied physical education and biology.
So,
And
so you've
so,
always had that. You've always had that ability and that
yeah,
connection. So it
yeah.
was a natural progression for you.
Exactly. Yeah, because my
Mm.
mom was a qualified school teacher, and she taught for many years. And my dad is a coach. I mean, he's like one of the first, like, professional coaches in Cape Town, and professional soccer players. And so
Wow.
it made life difficult for me when I played soccer, because, like, yeah, they're gonna call me out my father's name and but
Yeah,
but
no.
you know.
Soccer's the last thing you want to actually do, because the standard you are held to is way too high.
For real, and so for me, like, those two, like, I'm a combination of that, the physical education, and, like,
Sure.
education. And so hip hop itself, like, made me search for my heritage. And I prior to hip hop, I was, like, delving in, like, Rastafarianism, and because my dad had this albums of Peter Tosh and Bob
Yeah.
Marley, and there's one song, I think it was called. I actually redid the song for Black Noise.
Sure.
It's called War. It's a speech by Haile Selassie, that he gave at the United Nations. And, like, so I'm like, this black man said this profound stuff. Like, where's the rest of this profound stuff here in South Africa? I
Sure.
can't find
Sure.
this information.
Sure.
And so when I wrote to pen pals, they started sending me these photocopied, books, and they would give me information about, like, what's really going on in the hip hop world in the US. And to such an extent that I made the effort to travel to Zulu Nation anniversary in 1994, just after the first
Wow.
elections. Yeah. And met with Bam, and got to hear from him and other people in the industry, Wendy Day, like, people who, like, really are deeply involved in the music industry. And
Yes.
they were like, yo, whatever you do, like, if you're passionate about the culture, then do for self, and so when I returned to South Africa, Black Noise put out their own album. It was actually called Rebirth of Mind and Hip Hop Culture. and and we put it out ourselves. We toured on our own. We toured internationally on our own. We managed our own performances, our own concerts. We put out albums for other artists, like compilation albums. So it
Sure.
became very, like, live the black consciousness. Like, you don't just
Sure.
speak, like, actually implement it in your daily life, which is very difficult in the industry, right? Because
Right, because the closer you get to an absolute truth in this industry, the further away they want you from the
yeah,
core of what's actually
exactly,
happening.
exactly, exactly. And it's sort of, like, people often say, yeah, why don't you just do things yourself, and then you go and you take your boxes of CDs to go, like, drop it off at, like, what was it, Clicks, who was control of Musica, and they're like, oh,
Yeah,
no, we'll take 25 for the whole country. You're like, what? 25? How the
for
hell
the
do you just,
country.
yeah, for the whole country, right? And then you realize that the power actually is in control of what gets out to the masses,
Yeah,
like, whether it's
yeah,
be by radio or by, who distributes the final product. And also the percentages that they take from what you make is just,
sure.
yeah, that's like ethnic slavery over there, And artists often don't say that, they won't tell people, like, what they really make, from
Yeah,
those type of things, you know what I mean? Those type of
you know,
deals.
on that note, what I've noticed is that artists went from bragging about the money they used to make from sales to keeping quiet about it. And that's when the shift happened. You see,
Exactly.
when people stop telling you, how heavy they were balling from their sales. I was like, why are you so quiet, fam?
Uh-huh. Yep.
What happened?
Yep.
Like that used to be the thing, because if you moved X amount of units, we knew you were killing it.
Yep.
But now
Exactly.
that's not the story no more.
Exactly. So yeah, I put up this post the other day that, like, before, the, what do they call them now? The what do you call these guys? They're the influencers, right?
Oh yes, yes.
And like, I was like, put up this post, like, back in the day during apartheid, those people were called collaborators.
I actually saw that post because yeah, no, influencers work with brands, work with
You know?
mouthpiecing, work with corporate, work with anything formal and formatted.
Yeah.
Now, and they're making a killing off it.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, some of them, but you're definitely right. Those were called collaborators back
You
then,
know?
because there used to be boycotts of things like that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you put the
Exactly.
don't buy that. Don't shop there.
So
So
it's an interesting shift in, like, how, what we think, and what we perceive as success, you know.
yes,
Um,
yes,
yeah, and that's like a lot of the lessons that I'm, like, trying to share with young people is, and I actually put together, like, a practical hip hop school with
sure,
4 young men from Lavendale in Cape Town,
yeah,
and I just, I told them, you want to learn, you can come along and we can perform together, and you can come on tour with me. After, like, maybe a few months, 2 of them were like, all right, nah, they're gonna do a 9 to 5. That's just is not what they thought it was, and I think that,
sure,
like, for me, practical education is much more powerful than, like, the promise of achieving without actual action, you know
sure, sure.
so I try to share a lot of the realities with, like, the up and coming artists back home, and yeah, it's been interesting to see the shift that we're speaking about.
Sure.
It's been interesting.
What are your thoughts about the state of hip hop in SA, as far as where the thought process is,
Mm.
and how we are moving forward as a hip hop community?
Yeah, it's again, people are hungry for information. So I really like what Osmic is doing with the museum, because it's because we have a history of erasing history, as
Yeah,
a
it's
country.
it's a it's a culture. It's a
Mm.
culture, and a sad one that has been repeated even by us.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
we've erased our own history several
yeah.
times over. Yeah.
Exactly, and so I'm hoping that, because I was telling him, I mean, also that it's in that same space that's like the African Museum, I think, nah? Which is
Yes.
like, yeah, and so, I think the collective memory of Africa's contribution to civilization, if it can be fed into those two, like, somehow there's a link, then it's almost like, the book I just finished was called Reconnect the String,
Mm.
and I wrote the book because of b-boying being part of the Olympics, or breaking being part of the Olympics 2024. And so you have the
Yes.
whole world participating in this dance, but there's no connection to the people that created it, or the people that, which is essentially Black America, right? And I was here during the Black Lives Matter uprising, and so my question, and obviously also COVID, right? And my question was, why everyone's speaking about the science, but the science of blackness is, it removes Africa from the equation. Like, when you
Mm.
say Black Lives Matter, you actually mean African lives matter. That's really what you're
Sure.
saying, because that's what,
Sure.
and so when you don't say Africa, then you don't take that heritage back beyond a specific point. So the same conversation happens when people, like, in my community, they say, nah, colors began when the white people and the, the Europeans and the locals,
Uh,
mixed, or was raped, or
Mixed up.
whatever.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
what?
which
Yeah.
is a oversimplification of that history.
Very much
You
so.
know,
And a form of erasure.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And then when I'm sitting in, like, hip hop education circles at universities here in the US, the narrative is also that hip hop began from nothing, and they made something of nothing, which is, again, an erasure of, like, Black people's heritage going back to Africa, and, like, hip hop's
Right.
connection to Africa, essentially, because all of the and hence the idea of reconnect the string. You know, the motto in Tam that's on our coat of arms, the Tri
Yeah.
Ikarate, yeah,
Yes.
is you united in diversity,
Yes.
and that people, um, the Tam people, the last of the Tam speakers were then like interviewed by this Bleak and Lloyd, and that's how we got that memory still exists of them, right? But one of the
Right.
things that they did was write this song slash poem called "The Broken String," where they say that humanity has disconnected from our ancestry, from who we truly
Yes.
are, you know. And when you
Yes.
say who we truly are is actually African, this is the heritage we come from, you know. And when I say we, I mean all humanity on the planet come from Africa, you know. And so disconnecting that heritage is, for me, what part of the problem at the moment within the b-boy realm, where people in Europe are dancing but are not giving props to Africa. And when you
Uh,
get what I'm saying, so when you look at
and actually taking ownership in a way.
that, and the money is being made by
That's it.
other people than the ones who originated this dance form, and the same with
Yes.
hip hop culture generally, you know.
Oh,
and
yes.
and for me, I don't feel that decolonization, and I hate that word, because there's only, all they did was actually add a prefix D. The
Yeah.
bigger part of that word is still colonization.
The active ingredient.
You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be there, right? And for me, I almost feel like the better word is the rehumanization, because the
Right.
planet has dehumanized people of color because they have disconnected us from Africa and from
Oh,
the
man.
original information of who we are as humanity. You know, so all of these illusions that are being part of our education, which I re-term Eurocation, you know, and like, so I've been playing with these words like this, you know, Eurocation and Afrocation. I feel like the only way you can solve Africa's problems, if we teach from, well, not in Africa, but like global problems of racism, is if you teach from an African perspective, you know, an
Right.
African point of departure. Because if the oldest information and knowledge is African based, then it will change people's idea of what they see, because the negativity associated with blackness in Africa is part of white supremacy's agenda, right? So to change that, you
Absolutely.
need to change the content of what is being taught. And so, yeah, so we've been doing that at schools in Cape Town through Heal the Wood, and hey, OG, it's been interesting hearing like this challenge their teacher with what the teachers need to say.
and, and and actually dropping knowledge,
Exactly.
they're not being belligerent, they're literally questioning in a way which is making people step on the back foot, like, whoa, hold on,
Exactly.
wait. Not everybody all at once. It's like, yeah, but you
Exactly.
asked, you open the door, we have to go into there.
Yeah. Yeah.
um Emile, before I let you go, what what is your message then to those watching, and maybe to those who will be watching this later? Because
Mm.
fortunately, with things that are online, you're able to revisit over and over again and digest at your own pace. What is it that you want to leave the guests with today as a message from
I
yourself?
think it's, yeah. I think the main thing is to always double check, to always research. You know, I mean, one of the things we do is show the kids that we teach a map, an actual map of the world. I don't know if you know that the one that's been marketed globally is actually a fabrication, right?
Oh yes.
Africa is much bigger than what it's being shown
Oh
as, right?
yes. Oh yes.
And so within that perspective, that global perspective, lies the illusion of how small the continent is, as well as the contributions that Africa has made, you know. And as someone who's from the hip hop community, if you think about like all of the elements of hip hop, if you think about the circle, you think of it, and I often use the example of the Bushmen, where they sat in a circle and they told stories, and that storytelling is, and not only the Bushmen but all of cultures that come from this First Nation people throughout the world have this commonality, that they all tell stories, and that's the MC.
Around a fire,
Yep,
and
exactly.
and, and whenever you make a good rhyme or something, they say you're
Or
spitting
fire.
fire.
Exactly.
So I mean,
Exactly.
these
You
are
know,
these,
and
these are stuff. These are not foreign concepts. We just need to
Exactly.
reassociate them
Exactly.
with yeah.
And you know, from me back in the day, it's like always felt a sense of familiarity with the culture when I stepped into the circle, and like when I look at Bushman collective cyclic chanting, and you think of like the hey 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 hey. It's also a cyclic sound, right? That comes
Yeah,
back, right?
it's a loop.
Exactly. So it's the original loop, actually. And if you think about like the clapping and the collective energy directed to the
Yes.
dancer, it's a similar thing that as a b-boy, I felt that people are you know, like pushing you, you know, and that music driving you, like to a
Yeah.
great extent, is trance, you know. And so
Yeah.
like break dancer, trance dancer, MC storyteller, DJ is the cyclic loop, right?
Yes.
Going the the healer writing on the rock is graffiti. Like all of the
Of
elements are
course.
present, right? And then the thing that I want to add to this is to think of like the healing power of that circle. That every time you went in, you felt like, yo, I just let out, you know, like all of this, what I needed to leave in that circle, you know, and that elders, the difference between now and then is that our elders kept the darkness out. Like if you think about the elder would like, yo, slow this down. And it's the same in capoeira, because I play capoeira as well. Like the
Yeah.
person playing the berimbau would like, yo, stop. This is becoming like the energy needs to be controlled by somebody who understands that this is a portal between this realm and another. You know,
It
and
can
like you,
go too far very
exactly,
quickly. Yeah.
exactly. You know,
Yeah.
and we embody our words, and we're not having a debate society where we detach from what we're saying, right? We're saying
Right.
what we're feeling, right?
Right.
So we need
Right.
to have that understanding that this is not just this, you know, this is not just on this level, on this plane, that we are participating in an ancient healing process, you know, and an ancient communication between what is here. And in I'll end off with this, that the Bushmen believe that as is above, so too below. And they danced in that circle, and they did this pumping action with their bodies because they believed they're climbing this rope to the elders or the ancients in the sky. And
Wow.
they would actually then pull them down to dance with their ancestors around the fire.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we are part of something much bigger than like what is being sold to us, you know. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I do want to leave that with people, that hip hop has a huge potential to awaken us if we allow it to. I think that's the important part. We
And,
allow
and
it.
and open ourselves up as vessels
Yeah,
rather than
exactly.
what we think we are.
Exactly. And the energy, the truth of the matter is that like we hold the entire world within us. And this is
Yes.
another thing that we tell the kids at Hilderwood, is that where do you see me inside of you? Where do you touch when you feel me inside of you? All of our senses are gathered within us. It's not out there where we think. So why do we spend so much time worrying about what's outside when everything is within? You know. So yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it at
And
that.
and Emile, thank you so much for your time, brother. Bless you, man, and keep up the great work. We know that as you wherever you go, you are always building bridges for the rest of us, and you know, we only hope to be able to keep up that kind of work as well, because the knowledge also goes hand in hand, which is what we consider to be the fifth element, the knowledge,
Definitely.
not just of self, but the knowledge to recognize that you are the fifth element,
Yep.
you are the fifth element, she is the fifth element,
Yep.
everybody else is that element. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you for having me. Keep well, bro.
Salute, King. Man, Lelu.
Yeah, man. Whew.
Like,
wow.
yeah.
You know, those are conversations that we definitely need to hear.
Yeah.
You know, you get to learn a lot.
Yeah.
And as I did say before, you know, a foundation is very much important. You might
Yes.
think sometimes you know, but you don't really know.
And
You know?
what you think you know, sometimes there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But open yourself up to the
Yeah.
possibility that there's other things,
Mhm.
and they might be so
There's
eye-opening or
so
mind-blowing.
much more. Oh my goodness. And I love it when he says that people need to do research.
Sure.
Yeah, I love that, because hip hop, it's not just about what we see now or what's being done now.
Sure.
It
comes from somewhere.
Yes, so we need to know.
Absolutely.
What a powerful conversation.
And
I really enjoyed that.
What a way to bring us to right before the end of the program.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it doesn't end there.
Yeah.
Our partners at Team Backpack, World MC, our show would not be complete without the ciphers. And so the ciphers that we are playing out with today. The first one from Angola, 3 MCs, Volcanico, Hybrido, Das King.
Yeah.
And hey, listen, these guys go in.
Yeah.
These guys go in. I even love the fact that they flip even in their own languages. So you get an idea of this is what boom bap is sounding like right now in Angola. We cross over to the United States, to the rooftops, cipher similar to the one we had last week,
yes.
But now it's just more people on there. And of course, coming back home, South Africa, man, LT Bionic and Leverage, produced by Poetic Killer. This is how we play out for this week. Next week, we're not here.
Yeah.
So we are back on that.
On that other week.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, does this mean I'll only see you next year?
Yeah, that's what it means.
Does it mean I'll only see you next year?
Yeah, so that means we get to say our goodbyes now.
Yeah.
And Happy New Year's.
It's a Connie network.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Big thank you to everyone who tuned in, Showini. Thank you so much, guys, because this is for you. So please, and next time when we come, we need to have something where people, they get to make the show trend,
Sure.
A hashtag of some sort.
We will definitely establish something of that kind.
Yeah.
That you as the listener can make sure that this thing spreads far and wide, because the further it gets, the further the knowledge does as well. And we are just vessels for trying to get as much of this information out there as possible. We try to speak to people with a wealth of knowledge, and people with a form of inspiration that you can't buy. You can't go to a shop and have what they have.
No.
It's not for sale. It's something that they can gladly share with us, which they do. And for that, and then to you, Lelu, have a happy New Year.
Oh, thank you. You too, man.
Have a happy New Year. I'll see you next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah.
2021 thing of the past.
So is it next year and last year? Wow.
Guys, take care of yourselves. The 4 elements have always been there, but don't forget that you are the 5th element. Put yourself on the menu, because it is within you. Thank you so much for making us your choice. Playing out with Team Backpack, 3 ciphers, one from Angola, one from the United States, and the other from right back here on our shores, LT Bionic and Leverage, produced by Poetic Killer. This is how we play out. On that note, peace out,
Good
guys.
night.
We really do love you.
We are extraterrestrial.